ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hello, I'm Patrick Stack. I'm host of ABC Sport Daily. In case you missed it, there's a rather large Ashes series coming. And what makes these series so gripping, aside from the excellent cricket, is the history of what has come before. Now, Jim Maxwell has called more than 5 decades of action for the ABC. You're going to be hard-pressed to find anyone internationally in commentary who has caught more of this rivalry, I'd say. He's witnessed the highs, the lows, and he generally sees the joy in the lot. So, what we've done is we are leaning on our commentary skipper. We've paired him with fellow broadcaster and cricket podcast host Corbin Middlemas, and we've asked Jim to count down his 6 favourite moments in this 6-part special. Each episode will focus on a specific Ashes moment and how that moment spoke to a particular Ashes series. So between now and the start of the coming series, we will drop the episodes on the cricket podcast feed. Jim's bowling us an over of Ashes memories. Hope you enjoy. Here's Jim's Ashes special.
G'day, I'm Corbin Middlemas from ABC Sport, and if you're a cricket fan, you will know we're on the countdown to the Ashes, one of the most anticipated in recent memory. One man who first attended an Ashes test in his teenage years is now preparing and primed to call another test series for ABC Sport some 6 decades on. The great Jim Maxwell alongside me here at the Sydney Cricket Ground in the home dressing room. The summer's upon us yet again.
Corbin, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
What an amazing place for this chat, and what a backdrop.
Well, it's seen a bit over the years. Back to Victor Trumper, Bradman. This has been here since pre-1877. So we're in a chunk of history. There's been a lot of fun and a few incidents in this room over the years, and it'll probably continue for a bit longer because this is heritage listed.
Home dressing room at the SCG. It's amazing where, as you said, it hasn't changed all that much over time, and so even the modern day players with all the fancy new dressing rooms they might get at the modern stadiums, it's still pretty similar than what it was back in the day.
This is ripe with history, this room.
As is the Ashes, of course. So if you're a cricket fan out there, you'll know all about it. If you're not, there's something beautiful about our grand old game surviving in 2025 and thriving for that matter as well. As an old sport and such an old tradition as is the Ashes and the battle between Australia and England. So what we're going to do, Jim, we're going to get you to bowl us an over of memories. So 6-1. We might just start with number 6, which is one that's pretty recent in the memory bank. Bairstow and Carey. It feels like you say 2 names and you've said it all when it comes to this particular incident at Lords the last time around.
And goes green, bowl short again. Bairstow ducks underneath it. So we're in that passage of... Oh, hang on. Now this is interesting. Bairstow's walked out of his crease. You're thinking it's the end of the over. Carey has flung the stumps down from long range. I must admit, I was about to hand over to Jim there. It felt like it was the end of the over to me, which is what Bairstow's going to say. He's leaning on his bat, looking dismayed. There's no doubt he's out of his ground because he's coming up to prod the pitch and talk to Ben Stokes. This might not be very well received if it's given out, I'll be honest.
Yes, it will probably live on as much for the behaviour of the crowd, the MCC members, as the incident itself, which was, I suppose, a tad controversial. It's interesting to think back. We look in the book and Bairstow wanted out of his crease and Carey thought, well, if you do that, it's all wicketkeepers do at some point during their careers. I'll have a shot at the stumps because the ball's, as far as he could tell, was still alive. And he hit the stumps, which doesn't happen a lot. And Bairstow, rather dopey dismissal, but there it was, run out. Extraordinary moment in the game. First bloke I ran into was Andrew Strauss. What did you think of that, Andrew? Well, nothing wrong with that. And that was universally the view that in terms of the laws of the game, it was all kosher. That's what Pat Cummins said. And I think there was a bit of spice added to the moment with all the emotion that was hanging around this game. A stark catch that was out and not out because the ball touched the ground in the deep. There was all sorts of stuff going on in a lively crowd in a very tense game of cricket. As well as that, we had the situation where Bairstow, and it probably got on the wrong side of a number of people, particularly the Aussies, because he'd attempted to do the same thing while he was wicket-keeping and hadn't got a result. So he was a bit of a bête noire for the Aussies and the Aussie fans, and it really enlivened proceedings for the rest of the game because the game was on a massive edge.
Yeah.
And it seemed to further inspire Ben Stokes to go about his business of getting stuck into the Australians, which he did brilliantly, hitting all those sixes in an extraordinary century.
Green bowls and he swings at the next ball, and that's gone for another six. That has gone over deep backward square. This has been a crazy over, and the 100 for Stokes. 2 sixes to go from 88 to 100. What an exhibition this is. 3 sixes in the over. And the over isn't over, and Stokes isn't finished, that's for sure.
But the moment itself, I think, apart from myself, who had a little bit of spirit of the game feeling about it, and Jonathan Agnew was another, and we wondered what would be the sort of post-mortem, the residual effect of all of this on Carey himself as much as anyone else. Well, it hasn't proven to be too much of a damaging moment in Carey's career, but it lingers, doesn't it? It does linger. We had Hassan Raza out there at the bowler's end, and I just thought to myself, if he'd just said over as soon as the ball went through to Carey, which some umpires do, it would never have happened, would it? It would have been dead ball. That didn't happen, and we have this moment in history which will be recalled forever. I don't know how happily by everyone concerned. Certainly Stuart Broad made his feelings known when he came out to bat about Australia's sportsmanship, and it hangs in the history book.
Yeah, it's fascinating to look at it now. So we record this 2.5 years on, basically, since that episode at Lord's. Do you reckon it was worth it? Like, if the Australians knew exactly what the postscript was going to be, the reaction of the crowd, and the conversation piece, as you said, that's forever going to be around these two guys, do you think if Carey had his time again, he would have done the same thing?
Yes, I think he might have, because it's not uncommon. What is uncommon is for the wicketkeeper to actually hit the stumps. Very rarely does it result in a dismissal, mainly because the batsman's normally got his bat down before the ball has hit the stumps. But I think every wicketkeeper has tried it on at some stage, particularly if there's a bit of heat in the game because of just the personalities that are involved and the odd comment that's thrown into it and the shape of the game. I mean, that was the other thing about the game. It was an extraordinarily tight contest.
Absolutely, and the context of the series and where it was placed in that particular stage. Do you feel like it served as a turning point for the series? That it felt like, as the series went on, the Bazballers got better and better, and almost like they were waiting for that turning point in the series, or I guess that moment of a little bit of tension to be able to bring out their best cricket?
It's easy in hindsight to look at the way things transpired, but in those first 2 tests, England perhaps a bit too cavalier with the Bazball. When if they just played normally, they probably would have won. And to see Root getting stumped in the first test, unheard of. He didn't need to do it really, but this was the way England had decided to play, and it was great to watch. But the watching is all very well, but if you're not getting the result on top of the daredevil approach, then you get a bit more critically examined. My thing about Bairstow, and it was actually in the press, I'd said after the first test, one of the reasons England lost is because they didn't have a wicket-keeper, which didn't go down very well with a few Yorkshiremen and Bairstow himself. And he was still there at Lord's, and he still made a mistake or two behind the stumps. And eventually, of course, he was replaced behind the stumps. But that part of the exercise was important to look at if you're examining the moments in the first 2 tests and the way England tried to take on the short ball, particularly in this Lord's test, given that Nathan Lyon had broken down. England had a certain advantage from that point on, which they probably didn't capitalise on with their second innings, getting out to the horizontal bat shots, which were out of control. England probably just lost the plot a little bit in those first 2 games. And, of course, with Lyon out there after, they did redeem themselves and almost won the series. You know, that test match that morally they won at Manchester is talked about forever. I have a line for all my English friends about that. They said, you have to remember that Manchester is the wettest cricket ground in the world. So if you're going to play test matches there, be prepared for the consequences. Anyway, back at Lord's, the series was very much alive when Bairstow was given out.
He's out. That is going to go down really badly. Bairstow stalks off. He's had a word there with the Australians going past. They could have withdrawn the appeal, and they've chosen not to. Jonny Bairstow assumed that was the end of the over. He's walked out of his ground. Carey's thrown the stumps down behind him. Look at Stokes. He's talking to the umpires. He's not happy at all. And you can hear the chanting going around. That's not going to go down well.
I've got another question for you about the Bazballers in just a moment. But when it comes to Carey and Bairstow, and I guess you mentioned at the time you had some questions about the spirit of cricket. How do you think history will recall it? And I mean, it sounds like you're certainly very much in the camp that, look, it's part of the game. We see it in various levels of cricket right around the country and around the world every weekend. Once a bit of time's removed and we're even 2 years down the track now, do you think history will look on it fondly for Alex Carey, or how will it be looked at from his point of view going forward?
There's so many things that happen in sport in the moment, 24 hours, maybe a month. It's talked about over and over again, but time passes and away we go. I mean, if they had movie cameras in W.G. Grace's day, when he picked up the bails after being bowled and put them back on the stumps and announced to the world, allegedly, that they're here to see me bat, not you bowl, and that kind of carry on. Wouldn't that have been wonderful to have? Amazing. I'm still amazed that we haven't had a movie done on W.G. Grace. There's so much material to play with. Let's do it. So if you're listening out there, those fellas that do the screenplay, go out there and pen something so we can have it on TV. We'd love to see some of that stuff again.
I like it. The Bazballers. So, I mean, obviously this is a real inflection point for them in their time under Brendan McCullum, and obviously a huge flashpoint. But what do you make of this stage of English cricket? Are they revolutionising the game and it's almost like cult status, the way people sort of buy into the Bazball concept? Or is it just them reinventing the wheel? Where do you sit on what England cricket is doing at the moment under Brendan McCullum?
Well, in terms of what they were doing before, which was pretty ordinary and they were losing, it's been the most refreshing thing ever seen, I think, in English cricket. In terms of enlivening the game, it's got a bit more going for it than the sour taste that's still around if you talk about body line. But the way England have been going in the last couple of years, yes, it's been spectacular to watch. This summer will show whether or not their method, if they stick with it, is going to win them the series. And it might. I mean, they do have on paper, at any rate, a superb list of batsmen, probably looking a bit more informed than some of the Australian batsmen. But whether they've got the overall grouping of players around Ben Stokes is the question. And the question really comes back, as it always does in recent times for England, Ben Stokes. He is, without doubt, their sort of talismanic cricketer. And if he's fit and performing with the ball as much as with the bat, then they can win the series. I think you'd have to say that. But that's why we love talking about the Ashes. We keep going back to the history around this wonderful theatre of dreams.
You talk about Ben Stokes, you can't tell the story of the Ashes without talking about Ben Stokes, and I'm sure we'll touch on him a little more as we work our way through. I think as much as anything when it comes to the Bazballers, isn't sport all about the intangibles and being able to sort of buy into a collective goal? And if nothing else about the fast run scoring and the aggressive play, that's part of it, isn't it? That whatever you want to say about it, McCullum and Stokes have got this group and really the broader England cricket fraternity to buy in. It feels like they're all believing and heading in the same direction. Whether it works or not is another thing, but they're on the same page at least.
Well, it makes us wonder when you look at the way England play, do Australia take a serious punt and open the batting with Mitch Marsh? Think about that. England might. I mean, it's a short-term thing, obviously, but if you want to get some momentum, as Australia clearly did last summer by bringing Constance in, immediate result there. Okay, hasn't continued yet. Things like that, something worth thinking about for the Australians. But in the context of that series in England, I mean, after Lord's, you just thought, well, Australia are in control, but for one thing, And this is always like 2005 and McGrath treading on a ball. This is what can happen.
Yeah.
An injury, something goes wrong with your personnel, and bang, it's a momentum shift. And Lyon's injury was the big momentum shift that came out of this game. Not so much the Bairstow-Carey incident, because I can again recall doing a preview on TV for Headingley and talking about how roused the crowd were going to be because of what the Australians, the convicts, had done to Mother England with that shocking, unsportsmanlike performance by Carey and Cummins in unison at Lord's.
Yeah.
But in fact, nothing happened.
Yeah.
Because I think the English crowd were just so much behind the method and their team that's what they wanted to see flush out during the game. And other than Marsh's 100 there at Headingley, that is what happened.
It was hot on the day, though, wasn't it, at Lord's, and the behaviour of the members.
Here comes Cummins, last ball before lunch. Yep, blocked by Broad, skips back inside his ground. He's playing up to this, and there has been some drama theatre here as the players go off for lunch. You can hear the boos. Quite a hostile reaction to what they've seen. They don't like it.
I mean, you've been travelling to the ground since you were a young man. Have you ever seen it like that as it was that day?
No, not like that. The question's always raised about Lord's. It's unlike any other cricket ground where the spectators are in such close proximity to the players as they enter and exit the field.
Yeah.
It's always talked about that if something goes wrong, look out. And that's what happened. And the security, whatever it is, wasn't able to manage the situation as well as the gin and tonic seemed to get to a couple of MCC members. It's part and parcel of what happens in sport. And if you take the crowd element out of the game, it's losing the flavour of what we've come to expect when something gets up the nose of the fans in particular.
All right, last one on this. So the Bazballers, and we've talked a lot about them and revolutionising the game or whatever they're doing in the way that they're playing at the moment. We are a copycat sport, as we see in the sporting competitions right around the globe. So if someone does something that works, everybody copies it. At least with what England are doing, you would say, well, it suits the modern players, stroke makers, modern white ball cricket and everything else. Is this going to be the style going forward, or is that still to be determined, do you think, in the way that England are playing? Will Test cricket look the way England go about it for the next 20 years?
The method may be curbed by the pitches and a little bit of bounce and movement a la last summer against India, when the pitches, particularly with this double-lacquered high-seam kookaburra ball, suit good bowlers. And Australia had an advantage in that series. Whether or not they have the same advantage for this series remains to be seen. Will Pat Cummins be playing? So there's so many things in the air at the moment. But in terms of speculation about the series, I think we've got to believe that England are going to give it a nudge. If they fall over a couple of times, maybe they'll become more circumspect, but I doubt it. It seems to be the adopted method, rain, hail or shine.
Well, we know for sure Carey will be there and Bairstow won't. He didn't make the squad, but it's an episode I'm sure we'll talk about a whole lot going forward and forever a place in Ashes folklore. That's episode 1. We will be back to work our way through Jim's over of memories in the lead up to this year's Ashes series.
Did you enjoy that? Yeah, me too. Coming up in episode 2, Jim recounts an astonishing performance at Lord's from the 1970s. Brace for nostalgia.
Yes, it's amazing to think back to July 1972. I just happened to be at Lord's because I was a member of the Australian Old Collegians World Tour team that went, from Sydney through Hawaii, America, Bermuda, played for a month in London, a month touring. It was about 3.5 months. We played 90 games, but we just happened to be at Lord's when the test match was on. In fact, for the whole tour, we were made honorary members of Lord's and we sat in the pavilion. So that was quite a privilege.
That's Middlemas and Maxwell next time on Jim's Ashes special. Keep your eyes on the Cricket Podcast feed.
Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.